we can't just have these anti-violence programs. We need pro-brilliance programs as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a gun out of a kid's hand, if that's all you do, then what's that going to do? You have to take the gun, give them a book,
Right.
or give them something to do.
This is Hourglass, the podcast for United Way of King County in Seattle. Coming up, a candid and poignant discussion about youth gun violence in our area. We sat down with two young men from United Way-supported 4C Coalition and Seattle Cares mentoring movement and the director of Seattle Cares to discuss an issue affecting far too many of our young people and their families. We'll also discuss our free summer meals program for school-age children and a local volunteer opportunity. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for tuning in.
My name's Donald Tatum. I grew up in Seattle, and I went to public school, and I also went to private schools. I had a good balance, so I've seen a good amount of good and bad. I feel as if my mom, she did an amazing job with somewhat keeping me away from everything, but I'm not innocent to the common people and the common touch, so I understand exactly what's going on. My father was actually shot and murdered right in front of me on October 28, 2023. And so I kind of experienced, I kind of learned and seeing how to navigate through the different things that kind of happen in our communities is mildly affecting me. So now, different conversations are being had. I went from being a boy to a man in a matter of months.
According to Health Policy and Research Organization, KFF, about 54% of all U.S. adults say that they or a family member have experienced gun violence. That includes 21% who say they personally have been threatened with the gun, 19% who say a family member was killed by a gun, including death by suicide, and 17% who have personally witnessed someone being shot. Here in King County, we don't always see the prevalence of gun violence common in jurisdictions like Baltimore, Chicago, and St. Louis. They themselves are seeing decreases in violence from COVID-19 pandemic spikes. But when it comes to youth violence, King County joins other jurisdictions nationwide in grappling with increases that have continued unabated since the end of the pandemic. According to last year's King County Firearm Violence Report, the number of shooting victims in 2024 between the ages of less than a year old to 17 represented 15% of total shooting victims, compared to 9% in 2023. Additionally, the number of youth shooting victims in 2024 has doubled from 2019 numbers. Like other jurisdictions, King County notes that youth violence in general and youth gun violence in particular is highest among males and males of color. But perhaps an equally, if not more telling statistic is the correlation between youth violence and poverty. According to a CDC report, youth in high schools marked with high levels of poverty among their students are more likely to be injured or threatened with a weapon on school property, or not go to school out of safety concerns. And a study by Western Michigan University professor Ronald C. Kramer showed that most youth violence in America can be traced back to social and economic forces such as poverty, inequality, and social exclusion. But there are few studies that examine the bright, accomplished, and resilient young men of color, like 20-year-old Donald Tatum of Seattle, who has found ways to withstand and rise above the violence around him, even when it tragically hit close to home. A Renton High School graduate, Donald works as a sales associate at Nordstrom, coaches youth sports at Renton Community Center, and is pursuing a degree in business and accounting from Western Governors University. In addition to his mother who kept him on the straight and narrow, Donald credits the support of two mentoring organizations, United Way-supported 4C Coalition and its partner nonprofit Seattle Cares mentoring movement. Both organizations provide mentoring and academic and social support for young people in some of King County's toughest neighborhoods. They are run by the husband and wife tandem of Hazel Cameron, director of 4C Coalition, and Donald Cameron, director of Seattle Cares. Tens of thousands of young people have received support from 4C Coalition and Seattle Cares, and like Donald Tatum, many are on paths to bright futures. Another shining star at both organizations is 18-year-old Kenny Redrago, a recent Seattle Prep graduate who will enroll at Seattle University in the fall. Kenny is currently a Constituent Services Manager Assistant for the Seattle Mayor's Office and a former intern at the Intercommunity Peace and Justice Center. As a middle schooler, Kenny was part of a 4C coalition project called Building a Perfect City that enlisted Denny and Meany middle school students to probe what it would take to make Seattle a better city in areas such as public safety and housing. Kenny and others who participated in Building a Perfect City presented their findings at a workshop at the 2024 Martin Luther King Day Rally and March at Garfield High School. Kenny now serves as an ambassador for Seattle Cares, speaking on community panels and supporting community events. This past spring, Seattle Cares hosted the dialogue A Future Without Gun Violence that included a youth panel and speeches from parents and other family members who have been impacted. These are among the many efforts by 4C and Seattle Cares to address an issue affecting too many young people year after year. Hourglass recently sat down with Donald Tatum, Kenny Redrago, and Donald Cameron for a candid and poignant discussion about youth gun violence. For starters, Kenny and Donald Tatum spoke about their backgrounds, ways they've avoided the trappings of youth destructive behavior, and how they hope to inspire others to do the same.
For me, it's my background. I've grown up in Seattle, born and raised, and mine's a little bit different in the sense of my mom tried to shield me from a lot of it, and especially falling into gang life, especially around the public school system where that can be more prevalent. She started putting me in private school since middle school, and same with private high school as well, just because of some experiences I've had in elementary school, which is a public school. And so, however, the neighborhood I live in is plagued by gun violence. Like in South Seattle, like there's this one park like by my house, but kids won't go to because there are people who will shootings and things like that, and just hearing stories every so often in Seattle or from Don about stuff in King County about gun violence, especially around youth, either being the perpetrators or being the victims in a lot of situations. And some shootings I've heard, like at Garfield High School and things like that. It's that's been my experience with it. I haven't been a direct victim of it, but I know people who have been impacted by it. Or like one time there was a shooting in my apartment complex and my neighbor's car got shot up. And so it's things like that, like these close calls. Okay, it was at night, so they were inside, but it's a lot of I'm just fortunate that I haven't been in the line of fire or part of any of that, but it's definitely something that affects a lot of people.
I grew up in Seattle, and so I grew up with 8 siblings. So I have 8 brothers and sisters. And yeah, I grew up and I went to public school and I also went to private school. So I had a good balance. So I've seen a good amount of good and bad. But I've also seen a lot of my family members, my brother's actually serving time for some things that he's fell short to. And I feel as if my mom, she did an amazing job with somewhat keeping me away from everything. But I also I'm not innocent to the common people and the common touch. So I understand exactly what's going on. My father was actually shot and murdered right in front of me, October 28, 2023. And so I kind of experienced, I kind of learned and, seeing how to navigate through the different things that kind of happen in our communities. It's mildly affected me. So now, different conversations are being had. I went from being a boy to a man in a matter of months. And so, I went from just being a kid to paying bills. I went from amazing grades and going to school to, I had to take a step from college, and, it just different things that I had to kind of, make way for, as I kind of had to grow and develop quickly. And so, it's affecting me. It's affecting my family. I know my brothers, he was an amazing man. I mean, he still is an amazing man, but, being that he grew up in the Central District, being that he, was subjected to, people, trying to, either shoot him or shoot a friend, he ended up having to get a gun in his eyes. And so, sometimes, the community or the people around you will somewhat give you no choice, and so that's what most of these kids do see their options as, is no choice. And so, I think that, it's personally really affecting me, and it's affecting my friends and family. And I think that the things that we're doing at 4C Coalition is a step to having it stop.
So, for the record, neither of you have ever been part of the juvenile justice system. Neither of you have ever been part of a gang.
No, not at all.
How do you straddle that line between those two worlds, particularly when they involve people that you know personally or maybe even be related to?
I think that the big thing for me is understanding that I had an option.
Okay.
Understanding that I have other ways that I can deal with my feelings, my emotions. I just never felt like me personally, I felt like I never somewhat gave up on a better life for myself.
Cool.
And I understood that this is not an option for me. I understood that it was never going to be an option for me. And I never straddled the fence. I never acted like I was somebody I wasn't. I never hung around crowds I knew I wasn't supposed to be around. And as my friends that kind of grew up around me, I had friends that went to Franklin, Garfield, all types of different schools. They started to segue when we got to high school, doing things like having guns and smoking weed, drinking, smoking, all those different things that you kind of fall victim to as you kind of grow in age. I never took part. I never, thought it was an option for me. And so that's kind of why I got to make that decision for myself, because I didn't allow it to be an option.
And for me, it's been seeing that line of seeing how differently my life could have been if I didn't have this one opportunity, or if I wasn't doing this program, if I wasn't going to such and such school. Like if I had gone to that school, or if I had been in this crowd or doing, it's like I'm on my path, but I see the parallels of how easily that could have been different at this point in my life. And just being kind of hearing stories about it, or hearing somebody almost got shot, or one of my neighbors a few weeks ago, I heard these two I don't know if they're teenagers, young adults, but they came into our apartment area and they were shooting at each other, and one of the bullets almost hit her when she was getting in her car. It's like hearing those kinds of stories and thinking in another life, I probably could have been one of those teenagers, and trying to realize I don't need to be doing that. I want to go about my life where I have goals and I have dreams, and kind of getting involved in destructive behaviors like weed, or trying to feel like I belong in groups where I have to do something that's either illegal or something that I just feel wrong. Luckily, I've been fortunate enough to kind of learn that that's not, I don't have to do certain things to fit in, or feel like I'm a man if I have a gun or things like that. But I do recognize that's not something everyone has, or that's not something everyone's entitled to, especially if, for example, safety, feeling like you have to have a gun to be safe in your own community or watch out for somebody else, or even if you're wearing the wrong colors in the wrong area, and it's just things like that.
What's the lowest point where when you say that, I know there's another path, I know there's another way, but how low has it ever gotten? And you mentioned, a tragedy that I couldn't even fathom. But what's been the lowest point for you to try to stay focused and on track?
I would say the lowest point has either been just like in honestly elementary school, like I mentioned earlier, dealing with a lot of like a lot of systemic racism and kind of getting in trouble a lot at school, and getting in constant principal's office a lot, and my mom having to come and fight with the school every day and so on, and just feeling like what's the point? What am I gonna like? What will my life look like? Am I gonna end up in that school to prison pipeline? Am I gonna and then this is all at those points in my life, like my mom, who she did like a lot of reading and stuff, she kept telling me like that's how your life could be. You end up in the school to prison pipeline, you'll end up in prison, you end up in gangs, or have a goal for yourself, have think of something you want to do. She'd give me books to read, things like that. How to manage your anger, that way you don't get angry enough to go buy a gun or feel like you need to assert your power in a particular way. And it's things like that kind of built up my self-esteem, but helped me kind of realize, like, in that low, kind of seeing how I can chart a path and keep going on. And so I'd say that was like a really that low point of kind of like not knowing how my life would be like, but kind of envisioning gun violence is a big part of as to why I may not succeed in life.
Sorry,
I was going to say also the milestone ages of like getting to age 16, 17, 18 has been a blessing, because I know that's not something everybody gets, and especially with the rise in youth gun violence specifically, it's a really big issue, and so that's something that it's really heavy to think about in terms of how anybody can be a victim, even if you try to shield yourself from, like, unless you're literally living under a rock. Right. It's even if you're living under a rock, it's possible that you may fall victim to that too. Right. And so, yeah.
I think that the hardest point to not pick gun violence for me, it wasn't even necessarily when my father was killed. I think the hardest point to not choose gun violence or to not choose a certain path was when I chose not to choose the path. Right? Just like when people have problems with alcoholism, that's when their friends want them to drink the most. Right? That's like when people want to stop, cheating on their wife. That's when somebody comes into their life at those hard times when you actually choose not to make a bad decision is when you're opposed with the decision the most. And so I think, me growing up, always being in a family where we were respected, and it was always points where, I didn't choose that life, where people would be like, you're a punk. You're a sucker for not doing this. You're not going to drink. Why you ain't going to drink? All the peer pressure and all those different times were probably the hardest times for me to actually choose to not do something, right? When my father passed away, that was no longer an option for me because I had chose it for so long, right? So I knew that now I'm in a position where my brothers need something. My brothers need somebody to look up to. Now my siblings need a role model. And so that wasn't even an option then, but it was those times when, I was, we were all playing basketball, and afterwards I know they were going to a party that I wasn't supposed to go to, and I chose to just stay home. Or, there was times where, people were like, hey man, we're about to go here and we're about to go smoke. And, that was the times where I kind of chose not to, because I knew that once I kind of fell victim to those small losses, that I would finally take a big one.
Right.
And so, I actually watched the movie not too long ago. And he says inside the movie, he says, you dance with the devil long enough, he'll follow you home. Right. And so I think that all those small little decisions that you make lead up to a catastrophic loss. And so I think that as you make little wins, not saying that people don't make wins and still lose, but as you make those little wins, you consistently tell yourself and you prone yourself to winning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of, all I have to say about that.
So let me talk a little bit about the win. And I don't, want you to brag on yourselves, but talk about the wins. I mean, what have you done to make you say, you know what, I'm going to be okay, and I'm this track that I'm following is going to turn out well for me.
I'd say throughout high school, kind of getting involved in leadership and being an example for like the students at my middle school, Seattle Nativity, and like on student government, getting elected class president and eventually student body president, and kind of doing that and being involved in all these various internships and like getting involved in law stuff, and then interning at the city and like with the mayor's office. Like that's why you'd be like doing all these things and being like, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to help other people, but along the way being able to be an example. Like people asking, how'd you get in that program? How can I apply? Like kind of things like that. Like it's really making all those achievements. They were great, but the greatest part is like being able to share that with other people, and being able to say like, go to this website here, or just do what you're passionate about, or trying to find all these things to try to help people. And I think that's been a really big win, is being able to show people like you have a goal. There are many ways to realize it, or being able to say like, hey, reach out to so and so, maybe they could help you out, and just kind of things like that. I feel like are really, really incredible things to be able to do, and especially for my younger cousins as well. I'm an only child, so my little cousins, they're like brothers for me, but being able to show them like, you can go to school, do your homework, be man of the house. You can still be a kid, but still kind of learn how to take on responsibility and think about what you want for yourself, how you want to show up for other people, and things like that.
I think for me, my one of my first wins was, I was a sophomore in high school, and I wanted to make some money in the summer, and so I think I had told my mom that I wanted to make some money, and so she got me an LLC. She got me a licensed LLC. Then what I did was I went door to door with a lawnmower. I went everybody in my cul-de-sac, everybody inside of anywhere around me, I cut their yard. And so that summer I actually accumulated $7,500 right off of doing yards. And this is my sophomore year, so this is around, I think, 2020, right? So it's like that was straight to me, all cash, And so, as I made, started doing those things and, making my own money, it built that confidence for me, right? It built that thing where I didn't have to call my mom to go get something to eat. I could go, go get something to eat on my own. I had my first car. I was younger for my age, so I think I was 15, 14. With the car, I was feeling myself, and then as I, continued to build, I was a part of another nonprofit organization, B2B, which was somewhere I had done a lot of facilitating for them. So I was working at Dimit for a whole summer. Did it my senior year summer, and then I started to see the impact that I was making on these little kids' lives. I've even seen some of these kids now, and they come up to me, and I realized that I was an actual milestone in their life, right? And so, yeah, and also being a part of 4C Coalition, facilitating, for them, for the last 2 or 3 years now. It's been amazing, getting to see these kids out in public. I played basketball, so I was pretty good. I was pretty darn good. So yeah, I was point guard for in high school. High school. Yes. And I played for several different AAU teams and everything like that. And so, seeing these kids come up to me, they're kind of looking up to me. It's amazing, it's amazing, kind of seeing that light that they have, to see me. And that kind of makes me feel as if that's a win to me. That's a win to me to see that I can actually make an impact. It's a win to me to see that, these people actually are happy to see me or be around me. And, and it's really dope to me, that they would even think something more of me than I think of myself. Right. And so that's definitely, going to be one of the biggest wins. And also just being an older brother, teaching my little brothers how to tie their shoes, teaching them how to ride bikes, teaching them how to catch a baseball, things that I wasn't always, fortunate enough to do. But at the same time, I was blessed with being able to do it with them. And so I understand that I'm always going to be a part of them, whether they like it or not, whether they like it or not. Every time they tie their shoes, they'll have to think about me when they figure out, who actually did it with them and stuff like that. And I think that's my wins. That's definitely my wins.
So you talked about 4C.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about when the two of you got involved in 4C and Seattle Cares, and what have they meant to you?
Okay. I think when I first got involved with 4C, I think my mom was telling me how she was like, I want you to come and listen in. I think it had to be 2023 summer. And I think it was just, people were talking about gun violence in the Seattle area. And I sat in and stuff like that. And I finally, I think I got to meet Donald, and I got to meet his wife and everything like that. And they just seemed like really good people. And so I started to, come to little campaigns for them and stuff like that. And I started to see that, people started, recognizing me, started feeling a little good, like I was missed, And so then I started to be around Tarat, which is Donald's son. And so, yeah, me and him got really close. So we started, he helped me with the facilitating thing. We were going to Denman, Nelson, and we absolutely made a huge impact on the kids, huge impact. I just seen a kid that was with us the first year that we did facilitating. He's actually out of middle school now. And so he's in high school, and he came up to me in Tarat, and he was ecstatic to see us, as if we were, huge parts of his life. And it was so dope to me to see his smile. He's telling me he's doing good things. He's playing football now. He's a part of like a actual community outside of us now. And so it's amazing to see that. And it's amazing to see his growth. And so that's definitely why when I became a part of them, and why I actually stayed, And so, yeah. I've had an amazing time since I started.
And for me, it was a couple years ago, actually, at Umoja Fest. My mom introduced me to Dawn, and then had a booth and everything. And she'd been talking about Seattle Cares a little bit and stuff. I just heard about it, but I haven't really seen it until that day, and kind of seeing the mentoring and being involved in the community. And then because Seattle Cares and 4C work so closely together, it actually took me a while, even in the program, to realize that they're separate things. But the doing the Monday night Zoom calls, and then especially, I believe 2023, that's when the Huskies were on the calls, right? The Husky team. Yeah.
Similar to all those events you see there.
Okay, so yeah, for me, that was my sophomore year, the 2023, 2024 school year. Oh, no, actually, that was 2022, my bad, 2022, 2022, 2023, but yeah, it was, we kind of been doing all these events, and then going to the Wild Art Gallery, and going to on MLK Day at Garfield High School, and then walking down the parade path with them. So it's getting to know the organization through all these events, and then being tapped to kind of help out with certain things as well, with other organizations or groups that 4C and Seattle Cares works with, and helping out with the gun violence panel as well, and being on a panel a couple years ago with the with the UW Huskies as well.
Yeah. So a couple more questions for the two of you.
Mm.
So, you look at a lot of what's going on around you, and it always seems to be so many people that say that they have a vested interest and they're trying to change the trajectory of what's happening in these communities. You're in government right now and you see so many folks, but for a lot of folks that might listen to the two of you and see what they read, what they hear about on the news, from your standpoint, what is it that people are trying to do? What is it that they don't get? What are they missing?
I think they're missing experience. I think that a lot of people who are doing a lot of this work, and no disrespect to anybody in anybody's program or anything like that, but I think that there's a lot of people who haven't experienced enough. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is when you don't experience, you kind of don't understand what you're dealing with, right? You're not understanding the underlying problems that people are facing. You're not understanding the impact because you can't feel it. This didn't happen to you. And so a lot of times what happens is we speak for someone else, mm-hmm. right? And so, even when people talk about people in government positions where men talk about, a woman's body, right? How can you talk about someone else when it's not you? You don't feel it. You don't experience it. You don't know how I feel. Right. You don't understand me. And so I think that one of the biggest issues we're having is that we don't have enough people doing the work that have experienced it. And I think those people need to stand up for their communities. I think that we as a nation are not necessarily catering to the people that we know are affected as well as ourselves, right? And so I think that some people get to the point where they're so hurt that they can't help someone.
Cool.
And so I think we definitely need to have more people who are more closely to the subject involved inside of these different organizations.
Good.
And for me to add to Donald's point, we need people with the experience to help speak out on these issues and speak on specific things that most policymakers who haven't experienced it probably wouldn't even think of. Mm-hmm. One community elder, Dawn Mason, one thing she always likes to say is we can't just have these anti-violence programs. We need pro-brilliance programs as well. Mm-hmm. In these initiatives, we need to, when you take a gun out of somebody's hand, if that's all you do, then out of a kid's hand, if that's all you do, then what's that going to do? You have to take the gun, give them a book, right, or give them something to do. And so pro-brilliance programs help them see the brilliance within themselves. And then one other thing she says that I really feel hits home is kids aren't bad, they're bored. You have to give them something to do. And so if their environment is if people's environment is and this stems from so a wide circle of issues that all lead back into each other: housing, education, mm-hmm. Income, mm-hmm. race, so many issues. If you're in a community or an environment where those basic needs, people's basic rights and things like that aren't being addressed, and they're in this environment where destructive tendencies come and they tend to fester in with no pro-brilliance or no positive thing to look forward to, that's what they'll default to because that's all there is.
Right.
But even in those communities, you can't take all the guns over. You can't change people's lives overnight. But if you give them something to look forward to, something that's tangible, something that's positive, over time, it's one of those things that people need to realize. It's a long-term effort. You're not gonna get all the guns off the street in one night, and it's not that certain people aren't trying hard enough to do it. It's like, it's one of those things that you have to think long term about. Like, we put this in now, and 5 years later, the gun violence rates, the crime, things like that will start to decrease. And we need people who live those experiences to be on those committees and commissions and all those things, because if you have people who aren't in those communities speaking on this issue or saying, or they're not putting the money in the right places, they'll say like, oh, we'll give such and such some $1 million or whatever, but the money would be better suited to a community program where if you bolster that up, that could also help aid in that effort in a different way. So there's a lot of things that I think need to be looked at, and really more of a comprehensive. This is why like DEI is important, and like diversity, equity, inclusion, because you need people from these experiences and backgrounds to speak on that, because you need out of the box thinking, because what works for the majority or one group may not work for a specific group of people, and that specific group of people may be what needs the most help.
So lastly, to the two of you, and I've been asking this question for a lot of people when I do this podcast, with everything you've talked about and everything that you've accomplished, what gives you hope for the future?
What gives me hope is that I'm doing it, because I know that there's another Black man that looks just like me that can do it. I think what gives me hope is seeing my little brothers being kids and allowing themselves to be kids with playing in the neighborhoods that they're in and, you know, being somewhat comfortable. I think that what allows me to have hope is understanding that we have people who actually do want to help, right? And it's just about pushing the desires of the people forward. And I think that we're closer than we think we are. But when you're closer than you think you are, that's when it gets the hardest. And so I think that that's why we're having outbreaks and things like that, because we're actually dismantling what has been built up. And so as we continue to move forward, I think what's going to keep granting us hope is believing in each other, clinging to each other, and keep putting our best foot forward.
Great.
And what gives me hope is just other people who really care. I think that oftentimes a lot of people, especially those who are struggling, will feel like they're struggling on their own and there are people who don't care. But whenever I see somebody who's either, whether that's somebody who's volunteering at an organization or a shelter or something, or people who just open the door, just say hi, just in a regular day, or just kind of showing that genuine compassion for other people, that gives me a lot of hope. And I also think that people who care about doing things on such a big scale, like trying to dismantle and decrease gun violence, trying to help youth, especially for our age group, like 20 years from now, kind of thinking like what that's going to look like depending on how we keep going, whether we want to go on the same path or we want to try new, more positive things to help our community, like thinking long term and people who are, thinking about other people. I think that's the biggest thing, and be able to do all these things with like love, care, and compassion, and just do that however they can, and working with other people too.
Awesome. Thanks to the two of you. Now I want to turn to you, Don. What is the role and responsibility of the city and the state in building of community empowerment and public safety and its citizens?
Well, I believe that the city of Seattle did a survey about just recently, and they asked what were the 3 top priorities that the citizens were looking at. And I think public safety was one. I think housing was 2, and so the third one is escaping me. But the fact that public safety is one, I mean, it's been that way for a while now. I mean, it's sometimes you think we're making progress, and then we take two steps back. Like the recent weeks where we've had, 3 fatal shootings over the last couple of weeks. So, I just think that as a community, I think that we do look to our public leaders to provide leadership and provide a safe place that we can all feel comfortable in. And I think they've tried to a certain degree, but I still think there's a lot of work yet to be done.
Why do you think firearms are accessible to young people, and how can this issue be addressed?
Well, that's a difficult but a great question. Well, number one, and there's more firearms than there's people in this country. So
Right.
Number one, we have way too many guns. But I do think that, I think people have made an effort to try and create some type of safeguards and some type, reasonable gun laws to be able to address those issues. I just think that we still have a long way to go on that. And people need to understand that no one's really trying to take guns away. We're just trying to make the ones that are out there safe.
Okay. What are the challenges of the judicial system when addressing youth violence?
So we had a panel. We had two events on gun violence. We had one in April and another one in May. In the May event, we had Judge Veronica Galvin, who is an amazing judge for King County Juvenile Program. And one thing she said that really stuck with me, she said, the courts can't fix this. And, I had to really think about, so what are you saying? She said, the court can't fix this problem. It's going to take all of us, the community and everyone, really solving this problem. And when I think back to when gun violence was at its all-time low in terms of youth being in, homicides, there was a 4-year span in the city of Seattle where there was 0 homicides.
Oh, my goodness.
It's almost hard to imagine.
When was that?
That was in the mid-90s.
Okay.
So there was a program that the city of Seattle had. It was called the Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. There were people who liked it. There were people who didn't like it. I kind of fell somewhere in the middle in terms of the impact that it had. But no one can say that it didn't impact gun violence. And I think there was a number of things that took place there. Is that number one, there was opportunities. There was a lot of opportunities for kids.
Okay.
There was a lot of mentorship programs. There were a lot of trade programs. Kids could be in 2 and 3 programs at the same time. It was amazing. I'm serious. It was one of the best programs that I have ever seen. But I think one of the key things is that there were job opportunities.
Right.
There were 1,000 summer jobs for kids in Seattle. Currently, right now, there's between 200 and 250. That's a huge, drastic drop. And there's a variety of reasons for that. What I'm saying is that we know what works. I just think we just need to find a way to get back to what was working, because I think we can experience those same types of successes.
And then lastly for you, as I asked them, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that seeing key leaders like these guys. It's one of the things that we're trying to do is during that mid-90s piece where we were seeing so much success, where kids they were in our programs or other people's programs and they were all doing well. Most of those kids are around 25 right now. And we're trying to get a lot of them to come back to be mentors. I've talked to 2 of them, and they said they're going to be at our next mentor training that's going to be in a couple of weeks. So we're trying to, our goal is to recruit at least 25 of those kids and bring them back, because I think they can really be the foundation, building blocks of what we're trying to do. Because, eventually we're going to have to hand this thing off to them, and we just want to make sure that who we hand it off to, they're ready to go. And so I just think I think the future is really bright. Sometimes it's hard to see light at the end of the tunnel, but like Donald said earlier, I think we're further along than we think. It's just there's a few dark clouds over us right now that we just can't see the light, but I think that things are going to get better.
Great. Donald, King, thank the three of you. Thank you so much to the three of you for all your time.
Thank you. Great job, Keith.
Of course.
For more information about the 4C Coalition, log on to the4ccoalition.org. For more information about Seattle Cares Mentoring Movement, log on to seattlecaresmentoring.org. You know what goes hand in hand with summertime? United Way of King County Summer Meals Program, which provides free, nutritious meals to youth under 18 throughout King County. United Way is proud to partner with the City of Seattle, No Kid Hungry, Hunger Free Washington, and the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to provide free summer meals and help ease the financial burdens on families this time of year. Free summer meals programs are not hard to find. They're at parks, schools, recreation centers, and other places in your community. For more information about the Free Summer Meals Program, log on to freesummermeals.org. Do you love food and providing nourishment to local communities? The University District Food Bank is looking for volunteers to help serve food to members of its community. If you have just a few hours a week to give, you can make an impact on people's lives. University District Food Bank has volunteer opportunities Monday through Saturday, with some shifts during evening hours. For more information, log on to udistrictfoodbank.org. At United Way of King County, we are working side by side with communities to build an equitable future for everyone. Hourglass United Way is a podcast that highlights how we and our partners spend time making a difference in our communities. Our work is made possible by the generous donations from people like you. Please send comments and suggestions about our podcast to hourglassunitedway@gmail.com. To learn more about our work or to support United Way, log on to uwkc.org. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for listening. Until next time.